And here we're at it, episode 233, which means it's been 233 weeks all at once, all together with this incredible format. The Town Hall Academy is Carm Capriato offering great aftermarket insights and wisdom. Good to have you here. I got a great panel. As you saw their picture just a little bit ago, they're talking educational, informative, illuminating, instructing, and revealing. This is a show you're going to learn a ton about. We're coming to you live from the Remarkable Results Radio Podcast studio, and I'd love to welcome my guests that are here. Wow. I just do a wow with me. Okay, look at this panel, and while we're kind of getting live and we're getting out there, and no matter if you're even watching on my YouTube channel post, over the weekend or whenever it is that you all get a chance to watch, don't forget in social media, check in with your city, give us a like, how about a comment or a share. We're live right now on my website on the live page. We're live on YouTube. We're live on LinkedIn and Facebook. Okay, let me introduce this great panel to you. This is about succession planning, and it's going to be a story about, so what do I do now kind of story after I thought about it for years, and now I've got to do something. John Gustafson is with me from Gustafson's Brothers, Huntington Beach, California. I'll have John do a little bit of an introduction because he's the guy, if you will, on the center stack here, 50 years in business, with no succession plan in mind, although he's got a lot of great ideas. Hunt Demarest is with us, CPA/ABV. Now, Hunt, does ABV mean something about business valuation?
Yeah, accredited in business valuation.
Excellent. Hunt is of course, accredited in, there it is, in business valuation and a licensed CPA. He's been with the firm of Parmelis since 2006 and specializes in business taxes and of course, as we said, valuations, which is why he's here. He's been on the Remarkable Results podcast 7 times. Thank you so much for all of that. By the way, Bob's been with us 3 times, and Hunt specializes in our industry. I mean, it's service professionals that he does accounting work for, and is there another firm like that in the industry, Hunt?
Every once in a while we hear of a couple, but not a whole lot out there that do what we do.
Yeah, I know. Good job. And I know a lot of great clients of yours, and they love what you guys do. Bob Ward is here, president of Warden LLC. Bob began his business career as a franchise car dealership, and he's a native of Seattle. Bob serves as a financial advisor and consultant to small business owners throughout the U.S. He believes that your business should always be ready for expansion or sale. You should get paid for what you built. And when you decide to leave it, your company should continue to prosper. He believes in the perpetual business where there is value, continuity, and legacy. And I love Bob's passion for this. I can't wait to get started. Don't forget, we come to you live each and every Friday on right here on the Town Hall Academy. That's been likened to a 40-minute 20 group. Hey guys, let's talk about our great sponsors. Ring, 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 ring. It's the 2020s calling, and they're telling you that it's time for an upgrade. Head on over to the internet and type in getshopware.com. These great and friendly folks are excited to meet you and share all that cloud-based shop management has to offer. And when someone searches for a shop, who are they finding? Your competitors? Well, actually, it should be you. I hope it's you. The good people over at Shop Marketing Pros know how to drive website traffic and make Google work hard for you on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. Next Friday, Service Advisor must have qualities. Emily Sundstrom, Aaron Woods, and Clint White are going to be with me. Hope to have you join in next week and look for the Repurposed podcast of the Town Hall Academy each and every Thursday. Hey, guys, are you ready? Let's jump in. John, give us a quick scenario of your situation. And, of course, Bob and Hunt are going to be in this conversation deep, and I'm going to go have a cup of coffee.
Thanks. This is a great forum, and I appreciate the opportunity here. When I was 19, I opened this business as a small town backyard auto repair shop. It's been 50 years since we've grown from that situation to a 2.5 acre mega site with mechanical collision and a satellite shop that does another 1.5 million just within our 5-mile circle. Now, after 50 years, we know there's got to be a succession because you're going to go out one way or the other. And I would like to learn from you experts, and I hope questions from the audience. What are the options to succeed? And I can tell you for the past 6 years, I've been training all of our people in place, our leadership team, on process and procedure. And we've got general manager and managers of each department working pretty good. Recently introduced to traction. Been reading that like from the beginning. And there's some tools in there that are going to work, are going to help. So I'm here to answer questions with the intent in mind to say, what is possible after 50 years? How do you succeed?
Let me put a little bit more narrative in there. You've got a hell of a leadership team. It was John that was telling me, I really don't have to go in. So he's in a real ripe and interesting place. And another thing that John maybe failed to mention is you have no heirs, right, John?
There's no one to pass the business to in the family.
Yet, however, the internal candidate is probably what's on everyone's mind. But let us stop for a moment and realize the size of John's business, which I believe is a big factor here. It may be the elephant in the room. John, I think you okay to share the number?
Yes. In a normal non-COVID year, the 3 entities, the mechanical shop, the collision shop, and the north shop or the satellite shop, we produce $11.5 million worth of automobile service and repair, and in a 5-star environment.
So those are that makes it the size of a business like I've not seen in the 6 years I've been doing podcasting. So Hunt, Bob, I get the whole idea of this is to ask some questions and do a little back and forth as we, as the audience will listen to this. I think this is going to be a great episode to listen to over and over again and get some ideas for anyone else. And we know how many people out there are looking for a 5 to a 6 year plan on succession.
Awesome. Want me to start, Bob? You start?
Go ahead, Hunt.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, well, thanks again, Carm, for having me on here. Awesome to be on here. Yeah, John and I had a good conversation last week where I got a little bit more of a backstory, and I'm glad that you brought up the size of the shop because that's unique to John's business. We don't see many shops, especially, like you said, it's not like he has 10 locations doing 11 million. Essentially he's got 2 locations doing that much money. So puts him into a unique category here. But the big thing when I'm talking about any of my clients, when they say, hey, I want to sell, I want to move on, or you know what, I just need to make sure that my ducks are in a row for when that time happens, is we need to answer a couple questions because that's going to dictate where we go next. So the first we need to answer is, when do we want to do this, right? Is this a 5-year plan, 6-year plan, like you talked about, Carm? Maybe you're younger and this is a 20-year plan, but you're making sure the stuff is set up now. Or, hey, you know what, I'm done here. If I can sell this tomorrow, I'm out the door. So we got to figure that out, and by looking into that, you're going to be figuring out, well, do I want to sell this? Or, like in John's situation, he doesn't have to go in there every single day if he doesn't need to. Do I just keep on writing this out and keep on making the money that I'm earning on it right now? So that's the first consideration that has to be done, because obviously if we're trying to sell this tomorrow, we're going to have to do a lot different things than if we're planning to sell this 10 years down the road. If we're planning to sell this 10 years down the road, the value of today is not that important because we're not trying to sell it. And, doing a lot of valuations and stuff like that is not going to be a productive use of your time. The next thing is, like you already mentioned, Carm, who are we going to sell this to? 95% of the shop sales that I deal with are an internal sale, whether that's a family member, whether that's a key employee. That's where almost all of these sales happen. If you have a situation like that, it's usually the easiest. A lot of times you get more money because they know what they're buying there, and it makes your life a lot simpler. For John, I don't think that that's probably a likely scenario just because of the money we're talking here. We're not going into a 3-bay shop doing $500,000 a year. He's got a big corporation here, and it's going to take someone with some real experience and knowledge to be able to run this business like he does. The next thing was figuring out what we're selling. We selling everything. We selling the real estate. Which piece of this are we going to sell? So we got to figure that out. And then the last one, once you've answered all those questions, then you can figure out how much do we want to sell this for? Do we need to value it? Are we going to gift it to a relative? Or are we going to do some mixture of the two? But those are the main pieces whenever I'm starting to talk about evaluation or talk about succession plan that I need to make sure that we have answered.
Bob, before you jump in here, Hunt, I got to ask about tax consequences. Is that something that's part of the discussion?
So tax consequences, structure, and all that stuff comes in after we get all of this stuff answered out. And sometimes that makes the conversation a bit complicated. Well, I'm going to split this much on here. I'm going to do this much in an employment contract. At the end of the day, you're still trying to get to a net number. Whether it's, some of it's going to be an asset sale, some of it's going to be employment, they're still trying to get $1 million. So always try to figure out what that nut is that you need. And then once we figure out how much it is, let's figure out how to structure it in a way that, benefits John, benefits the buyer as, advantageously as possible.
I like what he said, guys. Don't mean to interrupt you, but the word structure, again, there's opportunities to move things in different buckets and to classify things, I think, which is what you're saying, Hunt.
Exactly.
Once you get to that particular point. Thank you so much. Bob?
Well, everything that Hunt said is certainly helpful and relevant. In my succession work, and 90% of what I do is also in the auto industry because that's my industry background. I tend to break things down with the most important question answered first. Hunt mentioned 3 different questions that need to be answered. There is one that I think is the single most important question, is what does the owner want the legacy to be? How does the owner want to leave the business? So think of it as the owner is no longer here on this earth, and they're looking down at what they created. What is going to make them most proud and most satisfied with their business legacy? So does that mean that the employees that helped build the business and make the money, help John get from John and Frank as brothers to building an enterprise with 65 plus employees? They had a lot of help along the way. Frank left to go to Arizona, has a body shop down there. John's been running the business and continuing to grow it, but he had a lot of help. He nurtured the people, he hired them, he encouraged them, he's paying them well. But it may be that taking care of the employees, their families, the clients, and the community may grossly outweigh any more money that he could potentially get. So when I begin my succession planning, the first question that I want to know, and I push and prod and give different scenarios. John and I had a conversation yesterday. I help an owner zero in on what's most important, and oftentimes it is not the money. They don't need more money. They've got more than they're ever going to spend. And in John's case, he has no heirs, family heirs. So he's not planning on leaving an extra several million to daughters and sons and grandchildren. That's not part of his motivation. Now, I don't know what John's motivation is. Well, actually, I should say I mostly do after the hour-long call yesterday. But if we know what the ultimate prime desired outcome of the owner is, then everything else can be solved, and all those other questions that Hunt raised must be answered along the way. We just have to have that ultimate vision, and then the plan comes into place.
John, are you willing to share?
Sure, that's why we're here.
What did you tell Bob that you'd love the legacy to be?
Well, there were 2 scenarios that were attractive. One was a gross amount of money to hand the keys and walk. The other was to leave the people who are responsible for the operations day to day and have put their blood, sweat, and tears into the business to get it to this point, to have a process to shift the business to them. And the financial side that Hunt and I spoke about, he's right when he said, once you figure out what the plan is, you figure out how to make it work. So the reason that I'm excited about today is that we can share what the possibilities are. And then after the episode, there's going to be a couple of weeks of reflection and determine what is that course of action and then start down that path.
Are you planning on finding a clear course of action today?
Today is the launch point for that clear point of action, and a couple of weeks of reflection thereafter, it'll firm up. We'll add some more background questions, and that will be the path.
One of the other things.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob. No.
One of the other things that John and I spoke about yesterday, Hunt and I and most people cannot find buyers. That's not what we do. We don't advertise, we don't market, we don't solicit. The toughest part of the equation in succession, this must be a buyer, whether it's an outside buyer, as Hunt noted, that's maybe 5% of the time. I too, 95% of what I do is inside buyers. They're already working there. We have to have a buyer. Now, John has potentially 65 potential buyers that are already working for him. He would want to know, as a good starting point, how many of those people even want to be a business owner. So that's a question every business owner listening can begin exploring today. Have a conversation about, I'm always looking for the perpetuation of my business, planning for the future when I'm not here. You're my employee. You are an important part of that planning process. Tell me what's most important to you and your family and your career. And sometimes that conversation is going to result in, I want to be a business owner one day. I want to be the future owner of your business one day. Now, that means John could potentially have 65 conversations. Even if they don't want to be a business owner, owners want to know what's most important to their people to help be able to develop their careers and retain them in the business. So it's always a useful conversation. So let's say John goes through 65 conversations and 10 people say, I really want to be a business owner one day. This is a great business. I'd love to be an owner or co-owner of this one. Okay, now we've narrowed it down to 10 people for consideration. Then John and any other outside experts, professionals, can help determine if those 10 people have the stamina, the passion, the commitment, the sense of responsibility to do what John has done. Okay, now we've got an inside pool to work with. And after that, everything is possible. Whether they're actual stockholders in the company, they become owners as individual partners buying the assets of the company. John's is a stock company. It's a C corporation. So they could be shareholders, or just assets could be sold to a new entity with 5 owners or 1 owner. Valuation would come into play, and then financing comes into play. But if you've got the buyer potential, everything else can work. Between Hunt and I, we could probably do anything.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, Bob, about talking to your employees and seeing if, they actually want to be a business owner. Because I know firsthand, I've had a couple people that thought that they had a succession plan. And when they actually had that conversation, they said, hey, Carm, I'd love for you to take over my shop. I got 2 years left. And they look at them and they say, I don't want to own the business. And a lot of people here, self-employed, right? It's like you would never think about the dream is to work for someone else. Everyone's like, well, I don't want to work for someone else. I want to be my own boss. But there's a lot of people out there that are like, no, I want to come into work. I want to get a paycheck. I want to go home and I want to leave work at work. I have no intention of ever owning a business. And you don't find that out until you talk to people and say, hey, is this something you'd ever be interested in? So super good point there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love this conversation, and I'm sitting on the sidelines observing and listening and realizing the opportunity that John has to talk to so many people, and say he ends up with 4
Huh?
that that have the passion, like you say, Bob, the stamina, the responsibility. Let me ask the question about the legacy of partnerships. How, here's maybe 4 diverse people that would have never thought, oh, he may offer this opportunity as 4 of us from 1 to 4. Do partnerships like that all of a sudden work?
They work similar to how marriages work. Okay, it is a form of a marriage, and I use that metaphor in all the work that I do. This is buying a business, selling a business is second in importance only to getting married and making a decision to have kids. It's not something you try on and, well, let's see if it works, and if not, we'll split up our property and go our separate ways. You do all your due diligence and all the planning you possibly can. And if necessary in a marriage, you have a prenuptial agreement. So should it not work out, you're not going to fight over anything. So in your illustration of 4 potential owners, there's all kinds of ways of structuring that. Anything can work if you've got the buyers. However, to have a partnership work, you need to have a very clear and written and defined shareholders agreement, so there is not the likelihood of fighting over anything in the future. Someone wants to retire, someone has to be fired, someone wishes to leave the business or expand. The shareholders agreement's the equivalent of your prenup agreement. So if you do all the proper planning going in, no one's in a rush, you're working to attain that comfort and commitment level from everybody that gets you the highest level of confidence that, yep, the 4 of us want to do this together. We understand how we're going to delineate our responsibilities, and we know the consequences of things that don't work out. It's neat and it's tidy. Where people get into trouble is they go into partnerships or marriages without the proper due diligence. The confidence is not the highest, and then problems can arise. So it's anytime you add more than 1 person, just like running your business, everything runs perfectly with you. As soon as you add employees, you add complications and complexities. And John has 65 complexities there, and they multiply. It's not like 65, it's more like having 300. But if you do the proper planning and look ahead to the potential problems or contingencies that can arise, you can have a great organization with 4 partners of one kind or another.
John, you've been a little silent, and
I'm listening.
Okay, I know
we're going to go sit up on Lake Mead and float around, swim in the lake. It's 102, and the water's about 80. So I've got time to take all this in that we've talked about this morning and digest it. I've got a giant whiteboard, and I use it for strategic thinking.
Good for you. We're so happy to do this. 80 degrees. It's like you're going to go up and take a bath in Lake Mead, right? Wow, just bring the soap, and hell, you'll never have to shower for 2 weeks, right? Amazing. Thank you so much on that whole partnership reality, Bob. You know, that whole it's a V8 moment. It's like a marriage.
Well, it's just remember, anything is possible if you have the buyer. And for the owners listening out there, I'm sure it's dawning on you even more than maybe yesterday before this podcast that you're going to leave your business, as John said. One way or the other, you're going to sell your business. It's either going to be planned and everybody's happy and everybody wins, or it's not planned and that's just a liquidation, and that's the saddest thing. So in John's case right now, if John were to expire after this show, his business does not go to a person. There is no person or people who actually own it. It's going to be in a like a caretaker trust, but that does not ensure his employees' longevity and the care of their families and the communities and the clients and what John ultimately wants. If he really wants all of his people taken care of, or he wants to get a lot of money out of it, whatever he wants, that planning has to be done like today. Even if you're 30 years old, you should be considering, as Hunt said, what your exit strategy is desired to be. And if you're 30 and you desire to pass this on to a key employee or employees, you'd want to be developing them for the next 15, 20 years so they're ready to buy your business when you're ready to put your deal together.
Yeah. Hey, Hunt, hold that thought, because I know you've got a whole bunch of great things to say. Let's take our segment B break here. A question: what do WorldPack, Mitchell One, Kukui, and QuickBooks have in common? Well, they work with Shopware, connecting the aftermarket together. Shopware's all-in-one platform maximizes shop efficiency and delivers customer satisfaction without compromise. Get the shop management software trusted across our entire industry. Get shopware.com. Your customers want you to do what you say you're going to do, and it should be the same with your marketing company. Shop Marketing Pros listens, cares, responds quickly, and they do what they say they'll do. See my great friends, Kim and Brian, over at shopmarketingpros.com. I have learned so much. There is just so much at stake, by the way, with, I think, what John is looking for and what his decision would be. I don't know about you, Hunt and Bob, but I'm curious to see what the 2 weeks of Lake Mead are going to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you? I mean, I'd be amazed if you're going to be up there with your wife, Kathy, right, John?
Yes.
Does she have a big stake in the decision you're going to make?
She'll weigh in.
Good. Good. Wow. So, Hunt, let's continue this great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, as a quick aside on your, quick comment there, that is an important thing because, if you're sitting here and you're a shop owner, your idea on when you're done with the business might be completely different with your spouse too. Like I just had, a handful of times where we went through and, I talked to my client and he says, yeah, I got a couple of years left. And, all of a sudden he's like, what, I talked to my wife and, she made a good point. Why are we still doing this for another 3 years? Let's get out of here. Right. Mm-hmm. So you got to make sure everyone's on the same page there. But going back to what Bob was talking about, partnerships, there's probably, a couple of listeners on here right now that's been through a bad partnerships that's like shaking their head and saying, no, I don't want to do a partnership ever again. We generally don't see very many partnerships in shops. Oh, we got one on there. Your partners don't end well. There it is. For most shops out there, our average shop that we work with is about $1 million, 1.25 million. I would say that's probably the average size of a regular size independent shop. And it's tricky to have two partners in there. Money wise, it's hard to make the numbers work to make amount of money. And then also you just got, two forces there. You got two strong individuals or more that are trying to combine their forces to go on the same path, but everyone thinks a little bit differently. Now for John, I think it's a bit more appealing for the business that John has because he has a couple different, sub businesses under his main business. He probably already has people that are, somewhat department managers there now. And just because of the size, it is a large undertaking if one person was able to do it. But, just like Bob said, you got to get all this stuff figured out before things go bad. Mm-hmm. I've seen it time and time again. When a partnership goes south, that's when they're trying to go back and they're trying to figure out, well, how do you value something if me and Bob want to break up our partnership? Mm-hmm. What happens if we can't agree with something? What happens if our partner dies? And all this stuff is happening when that event is going on. Mm-hmm. If you hate each other at that point, it's almost always going to end up going to court. No one's going to be able to agree with anything. You're going to bicker back and forth. It's not going to be a productive conversation. If it's a liquidation type thing and you're forced to do it, obviously that's not going to happen either. That stuff needs to happen when everyone's getting along. Not, hey, you know what? We're going to do this down the road. Everyone's in a good place right now. Let's figure out every possible scenario. There's enough experience around of seeing what's gone wrong with other people. Hey, what are we going to do in that situation? Here's the flat buyout dollar amount. Here's how we can kick a partner out. Here's how we go through if we want to add a partner into this stuff. And all this stuff has to be in writing. It all has to be agreed upon to try and reduce that friction as much as possible.
Well said.
Let me ask a question of John. By the way, I love where this is going. Thank you all so much. John, you've got multiple businesses. You've got a satellite mechanical business, which I believe you're in partners with someone on. Am I right?
Our corporation owns the business. We went in to rescue a business that had been sold and died and needed to be revived. And our main shop, the South Shop, we call it, handles all of the admin and marketing and stuff. So the North Shop is managed by the previous owner, not the one who killed it, but the one who built it originally.
Okay. Got it. So my question to Hunt and or Bob, actually maybe more to you, John, because it's so big and we don't know where John's leaning yet, but the whole legacy I'm going to assume that John wants to see this continue. I'm just going to make an assumption here. Would it be smart to split collision away from mechanical because they each require a different level of talent?
There's certainly different talent. It's automotive, but collision and mechanical are like stepbrothers of each other. They're auto, but they're not the same. Now, I could say that the North Shop could split off and return it back to its original owner. That would function, but it's so convenient and it's so much more profitable if we handle all the admin on one side and he handles the customers and the day-to-day shop operations on the other without the headache of all the admin. Body and mechanical in the South Shop could be split. It's possible. We're in Huntington Beach, where we're located. Within 5 miles, there are 300,000 people. So business is not I should say, we don't have competition of any significant size. So where we're located, you can't build greenfield. So because we're existing and we're 50 years in, we have the unique ability to own our market. So if we broke up collision and mechanical, we'd have to relocate one of them somewhere else.
Yeah. I see. Really? I mean, you're the landholder. You can still run two completely different businesses, couldn't you?
We could, but we share some buildings.
Okay. All right. Well, that's for a later date. It's an anomaly, guys. Hunt, Bob, 300,000 people within 5 miles, no competition. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, I think I just joined a Disney movie here.
Yeah. That business ought to be successful forever, provided some landowner doesn't sell it for an apartment complex.
John?
No apartments here.
Yeah. Bob jokes about that, but we see that more and more, especially Southern California. It's, I've just talked to my client the other day, someone came in and bought his building and he moved somewhere else and they have no plans to do anything other than bulldoze it. Because they're like, just the dirt that you're sitting on. Like you said, John, where you guys are, it's not like you can go down the street and set up a competition for John. You can't buy anything. And, we're seeing this around the country of, the shops that are surviving here are really just winning by attrition because you can't come into this market. All of these shops have been around here 30, 40 years. If you came to the city and you said, hey, I want to put a shop in downtown DC, they'd say, we're not approving that. The only people that are there are grandfathered in. And so really, really appealing to these existing, businesses in these communities, because that's your only choice. If you want to run an automotive repair shop in these cities, you got to buy one. You can't go in and just start your own, which is obviously going to drive the prices up as well.
Mm-hmm.
On the topic of partnerships, having multiple people involved, lots of people in the United States, have been married. That's a type of a partnership. It didn't work out. How many people said, I tried marriage, didn't work out, it was horrible? Well, it's all about the planning that Hunt reinforced just a little bit ago. You plan properly, you provide for a worst case scenario in writing, valuation formulas, buyout provisions, the financing for the buyouts. You just walk through every contingency, which is what you hopefully do before you get married. You talk about kids and politics and money management and all these things so that your marriage has the highest likelihood of success. These things can work. I'm going to add something else to the benefit of whether it's partners in fact, as I call it, they're actual owners or stockholders or unit owners in an LLC, or a partner in practice where you create a contractual arrangement that doesn't have actual ownership, but has the benefits of ownership with profit sharing and maybe a long-term supplemental retirement plan built in there to retain your key people. There's all kinds of ways of making multiple partner-like or true partnerships work. But here's another benefit. Think of the average shop that Carm was talking about and Hunt, $1 million, $2 million of revenue, and you've got 6 to 9 employees. Think of the benefit of having one of the owners be the service writer, key service writer, and the other is your shop foreman, your key producing technician. What a great team, someone who knows the front really well, someone who is ensuring the production capability of your shop. That makes a great potential partnership arrangement in a typical shop environment. And certainly with the challenge of any skilled tradesperson in any industry in our country, ensuring that you have production capability is critical. So bringing your lead tech, your A-level, your 200% efficient tech into the process. Maybe they don't want to be an owner on their own. They go, I just know how to fix cars. I don't really know how to run a business, but with the help of your office manager, service writer, the synergies can be very powerful and help make this work. And in John's case, he has a general manager of like the whole operation. And then he's got key managers for each of the 3 entities. And then he's got some key people under those people. He potentially right now has maybe 7 people that could be his owners or the owner equivalent, again, depending on how it's structured. Just go back to the key. You have to have the buyers identified. You get to be 70 years old, I'm ready to sell. Well, now what do? I've lost all of my planning and development time.
Wow, that is a huge point.
That's a good point. I'll be thinking about that on the lake.
John, can I just join you and Kathy up there?
Fly into Las Vegas, we'll get you a ride.
I love your idea though, Bob, of partners in practice. Hey, you know what, Bob, I'm going to treat you like a 20% employee, but that really can be torn up at any given moment. And we see that a lot, especially, if you're working on your 5 or 10 year plan and you're trying to keep a key employee on the hook, that's what we see a lot of times. Hey, you know what? I'm going to give you some ownership, but it's going to be just on paper. It's not actually going to be any sort of official thing, because if you give that key employee a percentage ownership, that's a one-way street. If you want that 10% back, it doesn't, you can put all the stuff in that you want into the shareholder agreements, but they can still challenge that, right? It could still get ugly. Versus if you just have a 10% owner in practice, hey, at any given point, I could kind of tear this up if you're going to do something that, I disagree with. So
help me a little bit more on this. It's an exciting concept, owner partnership in practice.
It's everything that an owner would have except the actual shares or the actual asset ownership.
And liability.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if we were getting together, say John continued to be the owner of the business and there were 4 partnerships in practice, a major decision on an equipment purchase or change in the business, do they get a vote? They don't get a vote.
Well, they can. It depends on what the relationship is intended to be. Now, if I'm John and in that scenario with 4, I would want them being treated as and feeling the commitment of owners, and I would prefer that they were making the decision collectively, subject to my final approval or my tie-breaking vote. All of us are going to leave the business. So we want to leave it in capable hands. And in order to develop the skills and the temperament and the maturity, owners must be relinquishing that hands-on personality control. I'm doing everything. Every decision's mine. They want to be giving that up, just as parents give up responsibility for their kids. Kids totally rely on their parents for all the decisions until like age 11 or so. Then they want to take their own decision making. But if a parent doesn't allow them to make the mistakes, allow them to make decisions and grow, then the kids they're going to be living at home at age 35. Owners have a really tough time. John started with his brother, two people. Relinquishing anything is a struggle. It's almost always a struggle, too much emotion tied up in it. But we want to. The highest calling of leadership is the growth and development of your people. The highest calling of parenting is the growth and development of your kids. You want them to be independent of you one day. You get to that point, all the options are on the table again. So I hope I answered the question. If they're just partners in practice,
I love that.
To become owners.
That concept, Bob, is great. I have talked about it, but I've never attached words to it. And to me, that makes a whole lot more sense. Partners in practice. Hey, let's do our final stop, and we're going to come back and we'll put a bow on this thing. Here's something to think about. How often do your advisors play phone tag? Well, every ring, every voicemail, it's time ticking on a stalled job. Shopware's digital communication is really as easy as the customer just clicks yes. Find out more on the web at getshopware.com. And if you realize that your marketing looks exactly the same as the shop down the road, well, your shop's different, and it deserves marketing that is as unique as your shop is. Let Shop Marketing Pros show your community just how different you are on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. John, I don't know about you, but I have learned so much here today. Conceptually, a lot going on here. Let's first of all, we may have to do the post Lake Mead discussion here because I am so damn curious as to John. I don't know if you want to expose what your thought. Maybe that would be cool. We've, wife and I came back with 3 scenarios, run it by these guys, but it's up to all of you if you want to come back and do that. I offer that invitation. And so let's try to put a bow on this thing in the next remaining minutes. John, do you have anything? I mean, I know you're the observer, John. You're taking this all in. Is there anything that you'd love to tell us what's on your mind?
I've taken great notes, and we've done a nice 6 year, from 6 years ago to today, we've done a lot of things to prepare for some kind of succession. I'm tax averse. I don't want to make a sale where I give the government half. And that's mathematically what happens when you make a sale. And to plan around that, to find a better way, is why we're here. And I've picked up some great ideas. I can tell you that Partnerships in Practice has got a star next to it.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks on Lake Mead, we'll come back with an answer.
Wow. How cool is that? Hunt, Bob, let's put a bow on this thing. You guys were just phenomenal in what you've offered us here today.
I'll say.
Yeah, man, I think that the general overview here is, this stuff needs to be taken in consideration. You need to prepare yourself for this. John set himself up in a position where he has the flexibility to have a lot of different options on it, but that's not done by chance, right? You're creating a business, you're building this business to sell at some point, and you're making sure that you're, personally ready and financially ready for this stuff. So I think the biggest takeaway from this is, being able to have that security that you can sit here and have a good conversation. You can take some time and you can really figure out the best course of action for the next step for your business versus being pigeonholed into a, unique situation because you didn't plan or you weren't financially prepared for it, or the business was just not marketable for whatever reason. So making sure to get ahead of it and making sure you have the time and the information to make the right choice is huge.
Hunt, you specialize in our industry. You've got hundreds of clients. How often are you pushing a, say, 50 something into longer range or long or short range planning on this?
A lot. I mean, unfortunately, what we see a lot is a lot of people aren't investing in their future, right? They're not putting money into retirement. They're not setting money aside. And a lot of people have this idea, well, my business is my retirement. When they do a valuation, they usually get a wake-up call that they're like, okay, that's a nice chunk of change, but that's not enough for me to ride off into the sunset.
Right.
And you don't know that till you really look into it. The same thing is also, if you look and you say, well, my business isn't valuable because of these reasons, now you have time to change that. But if you're figuring all this out when you're trying to retire this year, hey, if that business is good, it's going to sell. If it's bad, it's going to sell either way.
Yeah.
So you just got to make sure that, it's ready. I think that the biggest thing that really drives value of the business of not only how much money you're going to get for your business, but also attractiveness is how important are you as the business owner to day-to-day operations? The more important that you are in the day-to-day operations, the least valuable your business is.
Yep.
If you are an absentee owner, if you're a remote owner, if you're someone that's not part of the day-to-day operations, that is much, much, much more attractive to an outside buyer. They're trying to buy a business. They don't want to buy a job. And so that's, something that you got to make sure that you can set yourself up and make that position happen.
To your point, here's a comment from Bill Connor about job of the owners to educate and delegate until you observe you're obsolete. You're no longer needed. And John has done that. Wow. Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Hunt, for a great wrap up. Bob, I'm going to give you the last word.
I'm going to remind the audience that there's two things you can do right now. One is to consider that question, how do you want to leave your business? And there's two pieces to that. How do you personally want to leave? Timing, money, that kind of thing. And the other part of that same question is, how do you want to leave the business? In whose hands, in what condition, what do you want its future to be? So that's the first question you can answer as soon as possible. And the other is have those conversations with your people. Let them know that you are looking to continue the business, no matter how you leave, if there was a tragedy or when you ultimately retire, that planning for the future is really important. And each of your employees is important to the planning process, and ask them what's most important to them and their career. Now you've got a starting foundation for everything that may come next.
It all sounds so simple until you start taking the onion and pulling back those layers, right? And it goes to a couple of really critical things. And I need to pay homage to Bob and Hunt for what they do for our industry. They're important people. You need to have a quality CPA, not a bookkeeper, on your team. You need to have a good attorney. You need to have a business coach, in my thinking, and you need to have an advisor like Bob to help you steer the ideas and the structure and be the marriage counselor. I love that piece, Bob. I mean, that was so perfect. I mean, how many of us, I used to say, yeah, I have of course I have my lovely, great wife, Ann, but I also have a mistress. And I always told people the mistress was the business. Yeah, because think about how much time you dedicate. He's never home. He's with his mistress. So that is your business. It, like you guys say, is your life. And there's a certain point in time where you have to stop realizing that it's time for you to do less so you can concentrate on, if you will, that perpetual business. This was great. I'm going to tell you that this was so much fun. I thank you so much, John Gustafson, for bringing me this and to be our, if you will, center of the wheel. Do you have any final words, or Are you cool?
I am. I have a page full of notes,
I know.
and I'm going to the lake. I will contact you when I get back.
Thank you so much, Hunt Demarest, CPA at Parr Mellis and Associates, and Bob Ward, president of Warden LLC. Guys, thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you
Thank you.
all.